So today I bought a Azaton Desire X2 with DAB and FM, but in this video we're going to talk about the long slow birth of DAB radio. So the UK itself had a couple of these radio stations. While tuning in manually, we found that a couple of stations weren't quite as good due to this signal strength. If you've ever wondered why your DAB radio sounds so weak and terrible, that's because it is due to the signal strength, which to be honest sounds a bit weak and dull. The long slow birth of DAB radio was brought and heard by the BBC on the 9th of July 2010. Let's read the description of the long slow birth of DAB radio. A push is underway to get listeners to switch from analogue to DAB digital radio, but the technology is almost 30 years old. Why did it take so long to reach the airwaves? It has been heralded as the medium of future, the means by which we will listen to the Terry Wogans and Chris Mileses of tomorrow. Communicators Minister Ed Vaizey has launched an action plan to get listeners to switch from AM and FM to digital audio broadcasting, DAB, radio, promising that the public will adopt multi-channel national radio in exactly the same way that television viewers have seen such benefits. But although the format is not projected to win over a majority of Britons for several years to come, its genesis stretches back further than you may imagine. One curious feature of the DAB story is that it was an invention not of the noughties, nor even the 90s, but was first pioneered as far back as 1981. The technology began development at the Institute for Rundfunktechnik in Munich, and throughout the decade was the focus of the Europe-wide Eureka 147 research project. But the first commercial DAB receivers were not available in the UK until 1999, begging the question, what took them so long? The format is, after all, only now beginning to catch on in the UK, more than a decade after its public launch. Figures from Raja show that in March 2010, 24% of all radio listening was digital, compared with 66% on AM or FM radio, a rise of 20% compared with the same period in 2009. The remainder listened to radio via the internet, digital television, and other outlets. Independent radio analysis Grant Goddard believes that if there had been significant consumer take-up of DAB in the 1990s, it could by now have become the dominant format. He argues that the fact it was developed by a multitude of European governments and state broadcasters, such as the BBC, via Eureka 147, rather than the private sector, was a crucial factor in delaying its launch. If Nokia develops something, they'll be ringing out the handsets before you know it, he says. Because DAB was a pan-European development, you had to have agreement from all sides before you could do anything. That meant progress was extremely slow. But this alone did not account for the hold-up. The sheer complexity of introducing and regulating the system was also a major factor, Mr. Goddard adds. Exaggerated. Each country had to then implement legislation for the spectrum to be used by DAB because you didn't have a pan-European system, he adds. Then each media regulator had to find ways to license the spectrum. It was a hugely complicated undertaking. As a result, Mr. Goddard suspects that DAB's time may have passed before it even arrived, with other forms of digital technology, such as broadband, allowing listeners to access radio on their laptops and phones. But Paul Donovan, radio critic of the Sunday Times and a strong supporter of DAB, believes its tipping point in public popularity cannot be too far off. He blames a failure of manufacturers and broadcasters to collaborate with effectively. The BBC began broadcasting DAB in 1995. He points out, but sets were not commercially available for another 4 years. The initial claims for DAB were extracted, for instance. It was said that it could provide CD quality sound, which it doesn't, he says. This affected the public's perception. But look at the success of Six Music and BBC Seven. This is clearly something that people want. As coverage extends, more people will buy into it. And it's with car radios that DAB comes into its own. DAB advocates say it is on the road that the format's self-tuning properties are best showcased, and the government says it is working with car manufacturers to make digital radios standard in cars by 2013. Additionally, the BBC says it will improve in-car reception by placing more transmitters near major motorway networks as part of a programme to increase UK coverage from 85 to 92%. The new government, however, has rolled back on its predecessor's target to switch off analogue by the middle of the decade, with Mr. Vasey promising that if people are still listening to, say, the BBC on FM by 2015, then that will continue. Wherever DAB turns out to be the future, as Paul Donovan expects, or is already part of the past, as Grant Goddard argues, it has already consumed a sizable chunk of broadcasting history. The BBC stations provide good signal, while listening to a station like BBC Radio 4 and BBC Radio 2, we often see that the signal wasn't quite as good on FM, but for DAB, it's okay as well. Listening to a station like Radio X and Capital Extra provided good signal as well, but not stations like Absolute Radio 80s, which was on DAB in the UK, in SDL National, but not stations like Magic and Smooth Radio. Now let's have a look at the stations in the UK, which were available nationally. The UK digital radio stations provide good signal and good sound. These stations like Absolute Radio 80s and History, Heat Radio, Planet Rock and UCB2 all provide good signal, and the signal really drops out of at all. Stations like Share Radio, which was on FM, that is since closed. Stations like Talk Radio, TalkSport 2 and Virgin Radio provide good signal, but not stations like Sunrise Radio, Planet Rock and Premier Christian Radio, that is on DAB as well. Stations like Premier Praise, which was DAB Plus or DAB, which was obviously the case. And when we pulled the aerial down, the signal was absolutely terrible in this area. Now let's look at the DAB radio stations that were closed. Popular radio stations, including LBC and TalkSport, are currently down for many users amid a technical issue that is affecting DAB signals in parts of the UK. Global Radio said that they are aware of the ongoing problem and are in the process of working to resolve it as soon as possible. If you want to find out more about DAB radios, go online to independent.co.uk/arts-entertainment/TV/global-radio-LBC-signal. That is the website you need to go to. Thank you for watching this video. If this video was helpful, please give it a thumbs up, put a notification bell on the video, and subscribe for more videos about DAB radios when they're uploaded.
You take out or renew a policy with Tesco Car Insurance.